And we are back to talk about some of the latest things happening in the news, or not really in the news. Preston had this really cool idea.
Latest thing. This is the
Late to the Party
podcast, man, where we discuss incredibly important pop cultural events way after they were significant.
Almost 20 years after the fact. This is Carmine's.
Has it been 20 years?
Almost 20.
Since it started or ended?
Since it started. So Battlestar came out in 2003.
Yes,
2004.
Carmine wants to talk about Battlestar Galactica, the second one, not the one in the 70s.
But we will be bringing up the one in the 70s because I had some ideas that turned out to be incorrect, but also correct, but about the different show. We'll get to that. But do you mind if I go? You know what? I shouldn't do this. I know I'd piss off the audience and you if I told you guys how I got into Battlestar in the first place. But
how did you get into Battlestar?
I'll save that for the very end. That way, no one goes into this upset.
Because this is a juicy story.
Not really. It's just an annoying thing that people are.
I was having toast. I was making some toast.
It's gonna annoy people about how I really got into it. But it made me want to watch the whole thing. Do you mind if I start off from season 1 and go onwards?
Okay.
So
all right.
So season 1, I started with, obviously, the first episode, 33. And I gotta say, off the bat, that's one of the best episodes of any sci-fi show I have ever seen.
Wait a minute, you didn't start from the beginning? You started from...
No, I did watch the miniseries. The miniseries comes first. I did see the miniseries. But the way I saw the miniseries was a little different.
Yeah.
But no, it got me onto season 1. Homie, season 1, episode 1, the pilot, so fucking good. I highly recommend that. Even if you don't plan on watching the whole thing, just watch that one episode. It's by itself, it's so good. An amazing hour of television done very well. Easily one of the top best episodes in the entire series.
I mean, this was a beloved franchise. This was the thing, and then it fell so hard.
We'll get to the end. I don't want to like blow my load too soon with the end.
So Carmine and I are very different. So keep in mind, audience, that I watched Battlestar Galactica back in the day, when you had to wait, weeks for the next episode to come back, and then you'd have to wait months, for the next season to come. And everyone talked about it, and it was in the fantasy sci-fi community's zeitgeist. It was just we were so excited about it, and it built, and there were so many high expectations with it. And then and then the ending came. Yes,
we'll talk about the ending because I have some opinions on that. But no, so yeah, the first season, absolutely amazing. 13 episodes, honestly, flew right by. And I think, and this is important for when I talk about season 2 and 3, what I think makes Battlestar Galactica so good is this need to survive and escaping from this insurmountable threat that you can't counter. Because multiple times in season 1, there are points where the enemy invades the ship or some surface they're on some planet, and it takes so many bullets to take down one Centurion, one Cylon Centurion.
It's the stakes are so high every episode, because keep in mind, in the beginning of the show, and I think we could talk about, what do you want to talk about, general spoilers or specific spoilers here, if anybody's going to watch Battlestar? Carmine says that it's worth it. I would say, if you want a huge disappointment on the same level as Game of Thrones, Battlestar Galactica is for you. But,
I disagree with you on that one, and we'll get to the ending later. But I disagree. The ending, yes, very stupid, and there are decisions that are incredibly dumb, like decisions on the level of making Sam the Grand Maester. But I don't think the most egregious thing about Battlestar is its ending. I think it's something else that happens in the middle of season 3. But again, we'll get there. Let me finish. Season 1, very good, and I find it crazy how the Cylons they're essentially as weak as their baseline soldier model, which is pretty fucking strong. So off the bat, the idea that the Cylons are an insurmountable threat is hammered down on you. And the fact that every other episode, the fleet faces some kind of crisis, whether it's a water crisis, a fuel crisis, or spies among them that are Cylons in the bodies of humans, which I think is amazing.
The stakes are so high because all of humanity, billions of humans are killed, and we're left with the final 50,000 or so
Yeah,
in the
50,000.
fleet. And they're just being chased by the Cylons. And so every episode when they're discovered by the Cylons and they're running away, or they're having a battle, or they're fleeing, it's all of humanity is at stake every episode. And you're like, oh my God. It's tense, and it's not like, oh, they're going to get away and there's not going to be any consequences. People die. Main characters die. Thousands of people die. Millions of people, well, not millions. There's not millions left, but thousands of people, after seeing all of humanity wiped out in the beginning, and then you have episodes where thousands of people die, and you're like, oh my God, out of 45,000 people left, 1,000 people just died. Oh my God. Like you get these gut punches constantly in those early episodes.
No, you do, and it's crazy. And we had this conversation privately too about like how they're fighting the Cylons, and every other episode they're fighting themselves. It's kind of insane how like during like wartime, during this insane crisis in humanity, these motherfuckers out here want to start shit in the fleet and try to like gain power at the expense of like diverting Galactica. The Battlestar is like a ship called Galactica, diverting military attention to this instead of focusing on the threat of the Cylons, which could be coming from anywhere at any second. It's kind of ridiculous, but at the same time, I also understand
the amount of internal division is pretty ridiculous.
It's ridiculous,
like, yeah. I mean, and this is coming from a very cynical person who is like, how, but yeah, the sometimes you just roll your eyes and you're like, oh my God, like you're talking about the fate of humanity, like, and you're willing to do that, but
in the second episode, the main dilemma is that they need more water. So they need to get more people to labor this, to like undertake this whole thing. And they have the idea of like, well, let's have the prisoners, because there's a prison ship in the fleet. Let's have some of the prisoners come out here and work, and they can have some freedoms. But of course, one of the prisoners is a guy named Tom Zarek, who's this like revolutionary guy, and he has ideas about there needing to be a civilian government. And as of right now, the humanity only has 2 leaders, and that's unacceptable to him. And he's not wrong. There are various times throughout the entire show where decisions are made for the entirety of humanity by 2 people at the very top, Adama and Roslin, who's president of, like, he's not wrong. Like, we do need a civilian government, but at the same time, like, they know the situation. But at the same time, the civilian government should also know about the situation so they can help keep calm and help keep the people's nerves.
As someone who's, absolutely into democracy, I think they go a little far. Like guys, you're at war. You're running from the Cylons. Like, not that much time has passed. Like, only a few years. It's only a few years or a few months at some points where they're like, oh, we need to establish a civilian government. And you're like, oh my God, like allow martial law for just a little bit of time. Can we do that? Like, can you, like, come on.
No, you're not, homie. You're not wrong. But I gotta say, the one weakness I think season 1 has is Hilo's story, because Hilo gets left behind on Caprica, the planet, and his whole thing is like surviving the Cylons, their occupation, and the Cylons have a weird plan with him where one of their Cylon human models is following him and befriending him, and so and so. For me, I thought that was the weakest part. Not boring, but not as interesting as running from this insurmountable flood of destruction that is the Cylon fleet. These robots who are just after you.
In my opinion, Hilo is the worst character in the entire show.
Really?
But like I hate because I hated him not necessarily because of who he was, but the fact that like he is given such high access and they take so many risks with him despite the fact that he's been compromised. Like you're talking about we're talking about the fate of humanity. And the fact that he can just be like stiff and angry and be like, no, I'm not going to apologize for having a relationship with a Cylon. And you're like, oh my God, like really? And you're like, okay, well, and then they make him like the head military officer or something, you know, like he's right there on the bridge at all times. And you're like, oh my God, like, guys, you have 50,000 people to choose from. Can you perhaps have a security guy who's not in a relationship with a Cylon? Like there's just so many things like that where I'm just like, oh my God, like what are they doing? You know, like, so I always hated Hilo, which is
I
funny.
hate Ellen.
Oh, well, you know, I think a lot of people hated Ellen. But
Ellen is the worst character.
I think you're supposed to hate Ellen.
Oh my God.
So.
What's annoying is even after like the Ellen's reveal where we find out like, oh, she's very important. You're like, oh, but she's still acting like an asshole for no reason. Like she's still being incredibly petty and vindictive for whatever. But no, season 1, phenomenal. What I loved the most about season 1 is the Cylon threat. Again, they're so mysterious. You know next to nothing about these guys. All I know at that point around season 1 is that we had a war with them like 40, 50 years ago. It ended. And now they've come back and they've upgraded. It's crazy. And now they have...
Like they go into isolation. Mm-hmm. They think everything's fine. And then the Cylons come out of isolation and they're just incredible.
They're involved. And the mystery deepens when in season 1 they captured a Cylon raider, like one of their ships, and you get inside and it's all blood and guts, and you're like, whoa, what?
Yeah, that crazy episode. Yeah, that it's a
so
brain
creepy.
Flying a ship. Yeah,
that's insane. I love that.
I do remember that episode where she flies back. She digs into the brain and pulls out the oxygen tube, and she flies home. Yeah, it's pretty insane.
We should talk about who's flying it. It's Starbuck. I love that actress, Katie Sackhoff. She's amazing.
This is what's funny is that for years, like Carmine has always talked about how his biggest celebrity crush is Katie Sackhoff, and I'm like
one of them. I love Ava Green more, but Katie's up there. Yeah.
But I remember asking him, I was like, oh, so you must have been a big fan of Battlestar. And he's like, no, I've never seen it. And I was like, how are you a fan of Katie Sackhoff and have never seen Battlestar? Like, she is Battlestar.
Yeah.
You know? And he was like, I don't know what you mean. I was like, the show revolves around her. I mean, it's an ensemble cast, but she is so good and such an incredible character that the rest of the show might as well not exist. You know, like she's so good.
Preston described Katie Sackhoff's character as like the hot chick that makes all the guys go crazy. He is not. That is an understatement. Starbucks is so infuriating because I know women in real life like Starbuck who just, they don't know what they want. They're destructive, but they're also like your best friend, the one person you want with you, like in the fight. That is Starbuck right there.
She's brilliant. She's talented. You know, too brilliant and too talented. You know,
but she's got those inner demons. Fuck, man, those inner demons are such a pain in the ass. You love the character, but fuck, man, you can just get it together. She could literally command the entire fleet. But
I mean, it's kind of like imagine if you had Top Gun, but Tom Cruise is a heroin addict.
Or an alcoholic, like yeah, out of his fucking mind. I mean, more so than you. But no, season 1 absolutely amazing, and this is something that I've noticed after watching, because I want to let the audience know. Last night, Preston and a few other people in my Discord server came in, and you just missed it, but a lot of people were watching me watch the final episode because everyone was like licking their lips, rubbing their hands, waiting. Hey, you're gonna hate the last episode. And Preston shows up like a little late to the party, but we were talking about it. And something I realized is a constant throughout the entire show from seasons 1 to 4. The writing was good, but I will probably never watch another show with cliffhangers as amazing as Battlestar Galactica. Holy shit, almost every episode or every other episode, cliffhanger after cliffhanger, it made you want to binge. And I feel so bad for you guys back in 2004, where you had to wait a week or sometimes longer to get to this fucking episode. I feel lucky that I binged this, because some of these cliffhangers, and they happen literally every fucking episode or every other episode, where you're like, oh my God, I gotta watch the next one immediately. Holy shit.
Yeah.
This is so good. That was every episode for me in season 4. Like almost every episode.
it was kind of the time though. Like for instance, Buffy and Angel also was famous for having these like cliffhangers to the point where they were joking that like, well, the show is instead of it being Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, like every episode is Act 2, Act 3, Act 1. You know, or I'm sorry. Every show is Act 3, Act 1, Act 2, because everything is everything's a cliffhanger. It was kind of a thing of I think shows at the time. I've got to like look at a list of shows that were around in 2004 or whatever. But you're right that the cliffhangers were kind of out of control. And
I didn't have a problem with it. I feel bad for you guys back in the day.
I don't mean out of control. I don't mean out of control in a bad way, but I'm just trying to think of like other shows that kind of had people really pulled in like that and had to watch the next week, you know.
The final episode in season 1, like how it ends with that one person shooting like oh my God. Oh, I was like, yo. And then we get to season 1, phenomenal. I loved it. And then we get to season 2. And season 2, great. Really liked it. But this is how I knew I fell in love with this show, right? So there's an episode midway into season 2 where at this point they've been battered and like paranoia is up and like the Cylon, right? Like we don't know who's a fucking real Cylon, yada, yada, yada. And out of nowhere, we got Drader's contact and it's another Battlestar. Dude, I jumped out of my fucking seat. Oh my God, another Battlestar? And then it hits me. Wait a minute. This is a Cylon trick. And then that's when I realized I fucking love this show. I'm so enthralled that I'm thinking...
You're as paranoid as everybody else.
Yeah, dude. Every other, like, piece of goodwill that these people are encountering, I'm always thinking, wait a minute. This is too good to be true. This is a Cylon trick. Oh my God. I was so enthralled. This is oh my God. And then they almost go to war with each other. Oh, so good. And I feel so bad for you guys because I looked up season 2 briefly. Apparently, like that was the mid-season finale. Y'all had to wait like another several months to resolve that.
I'm trying to remember. So it's funny because there is a Star Trek Voyager episode that is very similar in plot and premise. But the fact that they make it, the fact that it's like, in Voyager, it's wrapped up so quickly and doesn't have lasting impact, like is different because Voyager was much more episodic. But but it was kind of the same idea of like they think they're all alone as the only one, and then they're not the only ones, you know. And there's some other, and they had to survive a different way, you know. And obviously this Voyager aired before Battlestar, so. I'll grant that Voyager had the idea first. I think what was I'm sure people like the Star Trek people will remember, but the premise of Voyager is that Voyager gets thrown to the Delta Quadrant, and they're like it's a pretty nice ship. It's a brand new ship. It can go warp 9.9 and all of this, and then at some point in the middle of the season they find another Federation ship. And that ship can only go like warp 6, and they're like, how are you guys even surviving out here? And they're like, and you figure out that they're a little more sinister, and that's why they've been able to survive. Is that they've been able and it's kind of the same thing with Pegasus, right? Like the Pegasus crew. They're a bit more hard ass than
they're awful. They're like
crew.
They're douchebags, and like there was no way they were gonna be able to co-command. That woman was played. I forgot the name of the
Ensign Rowe.
Ensign Rowe, yeah, Ensign Rowe. Everything she's in, she's a hard ass, and I love her. But fuck, man, that was never gonna be like a situation where they could share power.
Her name is Michelle Forbes.
Michelle Forbes, holy shit, that was never gonna happen. But man, dude, the Pegasus one, oh my God. And then their joint mission to take down a resurrection ship. Oh my God, so good.
Which the stakes are so high, but you have to admit the resurrections was such a cool premise. And then once you take it away, like one of the intriguing things about the Cylons is taken away, Like,
we'll talk about that because I kind of disagree, but we'll talk about that. Season 2 is also the season where I realized, even though season 1 had 13 episodes, season 2 has 20. And this is something I realized with possibly the worst episode in the entire series, the Black Market episode. And the Black Market episode, I'll give you the synopsis for it. The death of a senior colonial officer prompts Apollo to lead an investigation into the rampant black market in the fleet. So this is a very forgettable, very skippable episode, but this is the episode that also shows me that there technically are filler episodes, but you shouldn't skip them because this show has a habit of slipping in very important events in those filler episodes. What I mean by filler is the stuff that doesn't really advance the plot, but crazy stuff happens in them. For example, in the Black Market episode, the senior officer of the Pegasus is killed. The chubby guy, he's killed, which later sets up Lee to be the new commander of the Pegasus. In another episode, Lee and Duala are in a bar having a conversation, having a good time, and then the bar gets held up by terrorists. That's the episode where Billy, President Rosalind's first attendant, dies in. So if you skip that filler episode, you're probably going to be like, where the fuck is Billy? So...
Right.
And then you have also an episode like Scar. That episode shows us that the Cylon Raiders all have individual personalities and that the Cylons themselves have individual personalities and their skills are not, on par with each other. Some of them can be better than others, which is interesting. And then you have another episode where Starbucks' rival, Kat, she dies in that one. So if you miss that episode, which is kind of filler, you're not going to really understand, like, oh, where's Kat? She and Starbuck were always rivals, and now she's gone. So you really can't miss a lot of this. You should probably watch all of it all the way through.
I do think, like any series, there's some stinker episodes. I personally hate the episode where Baltar gives the nuke to the 6.
That's in season 2, yeah.
Yeah, I hate that episode. I'm just like, what human being would be as dumb as Baltar in that what human being would be that dumb? Like, I just don't know.
We'll talk about Baltar and his intentions towards the end because I have a whole thing on that. But at the very end of season 2, that's when they decide to land on this planet and try to make a new home there, New Caprica. And then it ends with the Cylons catching up to them and taking over the whole situation. Again, I was not really a big fan of them settling down on a planet, but I'll give it a shot. Season 3.
And time skip.
And over a year time skip. And season 3 comes. Man, this is when I stopped watching. This is when I kind of gave up because the first part and the second part of the season really slogged, man. It was a slog to get through. It really lacked. I'm sorry, but them being on the planet and forming like this.
I told you long ago that like them landing on the planet is like the height of the series, and then it goes downhill from there.
But I disagree with that. I'll tell you why. Because them landing on the planet is not why I watch the show. Them trying to make a new bastion of civilization on the planet is not what I think is that their best. Battlestar is at its best when it's running from this large threat, and they're not only fighting the Cylons, but also each other, and they're scrounging to survive. They have to scrape by. That's when it's at its best. Not when they're on a planet playing insurgency.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying that like season 1 and 2 are great, and then you're hooked on the show for seasons 3 and 4, but the episodes are not good. I mean, there's a few winners here and there, but in general, the show goes downhill.
And this is where I disagree because I think the latter half, the latter part of season 3, it goes up and it goes up and it continues going up. For me, I did not like the first, I would say, 15 episodes of season. No, I did not like the first 11 to 12 episodes of season 3. After episode 12 called Rapture, where they're at the Eye of Jupiter and that whole thing happens, the Cylons go away. And it's back to basics. It's back to Galactica being on the run, Galactica scrounging to survive. There's an episode in season 3, later parts of season 3, where Hilo is in charge of the Sagittarons, people who are like religious and they're refusing medicine, and he has to figure out how to fucking handle that, right? Or the one about picking Baltar's lawyer, Lampkin, who in my opinion is one of the best characters.
Everybody loves the lawyer guy. They wish he was in more.
Oh God, yeah. And I could tell they were like shoving him in there because later on, for whatever the fuck reason, he becomes president of the colonies. It's the Sam becoming Grand Maester moment. That was stupid. That was incredibly dumb. But another reason I didn't like season 3 as much is because the Cylons and what they are, we finally get to see their leadership. And it's literally, I've complained this to Preston, and I'll complain this to the audience too. The Cylon leadership, who's in charge of these robots? Sexy robots in space. In a nightclub in space.
Yeah, it's everybody dressed like they're going out to a nightclub, sitting in a nightclub.
I sent you a screenshot of like a fucking episode, and I sent that same screenshot to my roommate. I asked her, where do you think these people are? And she goes, a bowling alley? Yeah, it's a fucking bowling alley in outer space. And I fucking hate the mystery of the Final Five, because that was clearly a marketing gimmick. Who is the Final Five? Like,
pulled us in, man. It pulled us in.
It's so dumb because
I don't understand when I'm sitting here saying like, no, season 3 is like horrible, and then you're like I disagree with you, and then you proceed to talk about how season 3 is horrible. Just fucking admit that season 3 is horrible.
The first 12 episodes is, but remember, there's 20 in this season. The other ones were fucking great, and it honestly, after season 3, it gets back to being good because the first 10 episodes of season 4 are fucking phenomenal. It's
but now it's instead of the final 5, it's the final 1 mystery.
Right, the Final Five continued to be fucking stupid. There were some really cool episodes with the Final Five mystery, but I never really cared, and it never really hindered my enjoyment, because the very end of season 3 is Baltar's trial, and the B plot was the Final Five and who are they. I'm going to be very real with you. That was never interesting. To me, what was interesting was Baltar's trial, and as frustrating as Lee has always been. Because Lee is one of the most frustrating characters. He and Starbuck deserve each other. One of the most frustrating because Lee constantly being a contrarian and just going up against it. Mm-hmm. I understand he's trying to stick to what he believes, but fuck Lee, dude. Lee becoming part of Baltar's defense is fucking ridiculous. But it was also just so damn good that those series of episodes of Baltar's trial, the 7 episodes before the end of season 3, were just so damn good that I can forgive the previous ones not being good.
But that's the thing, man. By the time you get to season 4, it's such it becomes such a joke that Baltar hasn't been sent out an airlock that you're just like, what the fuck? What the fuck? This guy did war crimes on the goddamn planet. He all of the things that he's done, and he's somehow weaseling his way, and people just aren't that angry. Even though he's responsible for tens of thousands of people dying, close to 10,000 people. It's outrageous. It's outrageous that Baltar keeps getting tolerated as
here's the thing.
On.
And
the thing is, he does. It's not like he has allies or anything like that. It's him alone.
No, he does have allies.
Not many.
No. So while he's in jail, his lawyer is constantly sneaking out his Mein Kampf, if you will, and it keeps getting around the fleet, and people, for whatever reason, are believing his words.
But that's the thing is why would anyone believe his words? And keep in mind this somehow he's this I don't know, he's this weird, almost Trumpish character where he's just horrible and incompetent, and yet somehow people are fascinated by him and are just into him for no reason.
Here's the thing. I hate, by the way, I hate how Baltar's character is literally I have to ask, is he a brother of the creator? Because Baltar's character, I'm not making a joke to the audience when I say this, more than half of his storyline is having sex with incredibly gorgeous women. I'm not kidding with you, audience. Oh, yeah. I'm not. That's literally half of his storyline. But here's the thing, though. I agreed with you until Lee takes the stand. Now, when you ask anybody in regards to courtroom scene dramas, in sci-fi, when you ask anybody, what's the best sci-fi courtroom scene? People will always come back to you and say, well, it's got to be Picard's speech, A Measure of a Man, Star Trek The Next Generation. Lee's speech about being forgiven in Baltar's trial tops that. It 100% tops that, because Lee goes into how we've forgiven so much bullshit in this thing. You're going to sit there and tell me you can't forgive Baltar? And you know what? That piece of shit kind of convinced me. Like, yeah, he's right.
I can't with him giving away the nuke. But like, did they ever find out about the nuke? I don't know if they ever found out that Baltar gave away the nuke.
You know what? I don't think they did either.
Right, but I mean, he's saying it to the room, but he's also saying it to the audience, and it's like, nah, I don't forgive Baltar.
Honestly, I forgot about the nuke. That's a good point. But dude, Lee's speech, oh my god, it's so his forgiven speech. Look it up on YouTube. So good. I remember it. Yeah, so fucking good. And
I remember that. I mean, that courtroom episode is quite intense. But I will say this as my opinion on season 4, and keep in mind, this is, I have not rewatched it in nearly 20 years, but like, I remember thinking these are really great, intense episodes. But oh my God, like the show is getting to an end and we're not resolving all of the fucking mysteries regarding the Cylons and them finding a planet and all these sorts of things. Like there's also like who's sending the visions and who's sending the music. Like I kept thinking like, how are we wasting all of this time on them bickering amongst themselves when we have really important questions that need to get answered before the end? And it did seem like season 4 was more bickering amongst themselves.
We'll get to season 4 in a minute. There's one more thing I want to wrap up with season 3 that I thought was great. In season 3 is when Starbuck seemingly dies. And then I'm thinking, okay, fuck. She had a whole episode devoted to her like mental state and all that stuff. Like, this is it. She's done. And then she comes back at the end of season 3. Yo! And she's found a way to Earth. Oh my God, we are so fucking back. The last like 5 to 6 episodes in season 3 are bangers after bangers after bangers. I just really hated the final 5 stuff. I did not think it needed to be there, but whatever. And then
here's the difference. Here's the difference between me and you, man. Say someone comes to your house and is like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to take you to this incredible party. It's going to have great food, beautiful women. It's incredible. Get your clothes on. We're going to go." And you're excited. You're like, "Oh my gosh, we're going to an incredible party." And you jump in the car and you're primed to go. And you get in the car and you're singing the whole way. They put on music and you're pumped about going to this great party that's going to have fucking, beautiful women and great food. And then when you finally get to the fucking party, it's a fucking field of mud. Okay. Now you would sit there and be like, "Oh my gosh, my emotions were so high when he told me that we're going to this awesome party. And when we were driving in the car on the way to the awesome party, like we were having such a fantastic moment." And then you're like, "Yeah, the field of mud wasn't great, but all that great experience of getting hyped about the party and being happy about the party that I was going to was pretty great." That's you, Carmine. I'm
look.
You took me to a fucking field of mud.
Hold on. Hold on. I don't think that's as accurate because yes,
now you're sitting there going, "Why is Starbuck back? Why is Starbuck back?"
Yes, I agree with you. Like in the sense that there were some dumb moments, but in my opinion, I think what was good outweighs a lot of that. The final 5 stuff was dumb. The ending about what really going on, that was dumb. But honestly, I love the journey. The journey from start to finish, it had its bumps. But for the most part, I'm glad I took it because, man, there were so many good episodes that outweighed a lot of the bad. And to piggyback off what you were saying, yeah, we're going to this place, we're on our way there, it's A to B destination, but on our way there, we had a lot of good times. We met some interesting people, we went to, we visited some really cool places. The journey was great. The destination may not have been that great, but the journey itself was pretty memorable, pretty awesome, and I'm glad I went on it, even if the destination wasn't as fulfilling as originally intended.
So Carmine, man, let me tell you, man, I got this party we can go to. It's got some. Oh my god, it's got beautiful women.
Stop.
Oh my god, they've got incredible food there, man. It's like fresh sushi.
Well, here's the thing. This is what I was worried about.
Oh my god.
I was worried that the Final 5 bullshit was going to ruin most of season 4. It actually didn't.
And it did. What are you talking about?
No,
of course it did.
No, you're crazy, man. Again, I wasn't too invested in Saul, Ty, Tori, whatever, or whoever the fuck else being like
Gata, like his Gata's mutiny.
No,
like
we'll get to that. We'll get to that. The
Oh
first 10
my
episodes,
God.
because it's split in half. The first 10, it had to be split in half because of the writer's strike. The first 10 episodes, again, banger after banger after banger after banger. And then we get to the final episode in the first half, episode 10. Phenomenal episode. Absolutely phenomenal. It's the one where Lee orchestrates the truce with Deanna, and they get to Earth, and Earth is just destroyed. You're like, yo, what just happened? Again, banger after banger after banger episodes in season 4. And then we get to the second half of season 4.
A lot of people were very disappointed with that. Because
Really?
Considering that the entire mission, the entire plot of the show is trying to find Earth, and then they get to Earth, and it's like, wah, wah, irradiated.
Maybe I'm just really into the grim dark of it all, like the horror aspect of it, because it really sent chills. Like, whoa, Earth is destroyed? Holy fuck. And then we get to the next episode, and you feel the fucking tension, you feel the depression, you feel just a sense of hopelessness. And then the episode ends with Lee's, I don't know if she's his ex-wife at this point, but Lee's estranged wife, Duala, where she like has a good time with him. She goes back to her bunk and she just shoots herself because she just can't take it anymore. And you see and you hear throughout the entirety of the fleet that but suicides are up. And you're like, yo, this is like a very low point for the fleet. You feel it. I love that feeling. And then Gata's mutiny. If you didn't watch the Faces of the Enemy web series, because around this time, I don't know why, a lot of television shows had this weird, and some movies too, had this weird obsession with making webisodes and uploading it to their own personal websites. So you had to go to the websites to watch it. But in Gata's Faces of the Enemy, you find out that Gata, unknowingly through Cylon trickery, helped the Cylons on the occupation of New Caprica. And that like just makes him snap. So his mutiny, I'm sure it was annoying like week after week, but going through that, you're like, fucking Mr. Gate. Like, I'm pissed. Like, dude, everyone's taking in their licks. Everybody's like down, and you're over here making it worse. You piece of fucking shit. And you're like, you're into it. But man, Gata's mutiny did not help the situation. I thought Baltar's cult was also going to be a problem. And I feel like if they had another season, it would have been. Because remember Baltar's cult?
Yeah, it was just another. Yeah, I do. That's where they didn't know what to do with Baltar's character, so they give him this like fucking cult near the end.
This harem
I remember it.
of women, like, ugh.
Yeah.
Oh my god. And then, okay, then we get to Ellen being the final Cylon. That was stupid. I'm not gonna lie. That was incredibly dumb. But still,
see, don't you see how this is like a whole line of disappointments? Like, oh, they find Earth. Wah, wah. Oh, the final one is Ellen. Like, wah, wah. Like,
I'm gonna be very real with you.
And they're just killing off characters right and left for the sake of killing off characters right and left. Like, what do we do with Gata? We haven't done anything with him in the whole show. Let's have him have a mutiny. What do we do with Lee's wife? Let's just have her kill herself. Like, it just starts getting. It was just like every episode was just. I mean, do you remember the end of Game of Thrones where they're just bringing back characters to kill them?
Yes. I don't think
that's kind of like Battlestar.
I don't think it's on the same level because those characters never really left, and these characters are people, and people have these like Duala feeling the sense of hopelessness and just wanting to off herself. That's dark, but fair. There's gonna be some people who feel a sense of hopelessness, like all is lost, and they're gonna off themselves. Gata feeling jaded about like the Cylons and Adama and all these other people making these decisions to let the Cylons, who eradicated billions of people, into the fleet the way they have been. And I gotta say, Adama's making some bullshit moves all throughout that season, the second half of that season. And I understand where he's coming from because we see it from his perspective, but the other characters aren't. So Gata feeling jaded about leadership's like decision on the Cylons and what they did to humanity, that's understandable. Like, fuck him for the mutiny, but that's like, I get it. I understand. But Ellen being the final Cylon, I didn't give a fuck. Like, that's stupid. You're gonna sit there and tell me that Saul and Ellen are behind making the Cylons? This is where, for me,
I mean, so the final five was stupid. I mean, Saul being a Cylon is stupid. I mean,
it's dumb. It's dumb.
Like he was in the fucking war. Like, everyone should remember he's too old to be a Cylon, but whatever.
Well, he actually explains that, like, because Adama says...
he explains it poorly.
He explains
it very poorly, because somehow there's skin jobs way back when the Cylons were all a bunch of, like, hulking toasters, and there were secretly a bunch of, like, the final five were a secret bunch of mysterious skin jobs and so when that existed before they went into isolation, then what the fucking point was isolation? The whole point of isolation was they took them that long to come up with skin jobs. Well, and now they had skin jobs to start with?
Yep, that was stupid. I agree with you 110%. And Cavill, which, by the way, is the older man Cylon model, he even says, like, the reason he did it was because, like, justice or whatever, or some bullshit like that. It was kind of a really shoddy reason to restart the war. Whatever. Like, that part was not good. But again, even though it wasn't good, it didn't ruin the experience for me. Then we get to the final episode. This is what we got to talk about. The final episode, it is revealed because throughout the entire season, Baltar has been seeing this messenger, right, from God. This hallucination of the Caprica 6 model who's always in a red dress, okay? So, apparently, God did it. When I had this conversation with you last night in the Discord server with the other people...
Yeah.
I just had finished the episode 15 minutes later, and I'm trying to come to grips with what I saw. You've had 15 years. I had 15 minutes. And
I think you had assumed that no ending could be that stupid, so it must be something else.
Yes.
And you assumed it was something else.
Yes.
But no, it was really that stupid.
Because the reason I'm like, because I didn't understand, like, when they keep talking about God, like, what the fuck? I had my own theories throughout the entire show of what was really going on. And then I read George R. Martin's blog post on it. And I'm like, wait, George is upset that God did it. God didn't do it. And you're like, no, yeah, that's really the ending. I'm like, no, that's dumb. They wouldn't ruin the show this way. And everyone's like, yeah, like, oh, man, that's stupid. Can I tell you what my theory was for the most of it? Like, what I thought was happening throughout the show?
They didn't know what the fuck they were doing, and they were writing it episode by episode. And they had no master plan, which is ironic because they kept talking about the plan.
Yeah.
There was no plan.
Yeah. Can I tell you what I thought was happening? Like, my theory?
Sure.
So what I thought was happening was that the gods of Kobol were hyper-advanced, extra-dimensional aliens, super advanced, who seeded life throughout the galaxy. But one of them was evil, and that evil alien god was the 6 model that Baltar was hallucinating, or she was the evil god's champion trying to get Baltar to doom humanity. Because Baltar is the only person who is, like, special or something that can. So Starbuck, I thought, would be the good guy's champion. Because, or the good god's champion person. Because she dies and then comes back. I thought it was a situation like in Interstellar, where Matthew McConaughey's character goes into the black hole, and there's like some kind of like space-time dilation thing, and that's how she was able to come back, right? So, towards the end...
You're coming up with something way more clever than what happened.
Well, that was my theory. I was expecting Baltar to reject the hallucination in the end and admit his bullshit. And even the 6 model that he keeps hallucinating, she's almost devil-esque in a way. Like, she was wearing red, she was seducing him to kind of do evil shit. And,
I mean, the devil is the servant of God, yeah.
Right, well, sure. But, like, again, like, when we think of the devil, we think of like the guy with horns wearing red and so forth. And it's like that movie I told you about, Contact, where Jodie Foster goes into space and the alien takes over the form of someone she loves. Like, that's what I thought the alien here was doing to Baltar, taking the form of the person he loves the most, which was that Caprica 6 model. And that's what I thought was happening. And the reason I thought this is because you told me that Ronald Moore, the guy who created this version of Battlestar, he worked on Deep Space Nine. And that's the actual story in Deep Space Nine with the Pa-Wraiths and the Bajoran gods. Mm-hmm. They're the gods that live. They're the aliens, the hyper-advanced aliens that live inside the wormhole. So I thought some of the Deep Space Nine stuff was bleeding on here.
Yeah, no, and it's convoluted and dumb and doesn't make any sense. And look, I want you to Google Battlestar Galactica Last Supper.
Last Supper? What is this?
Just Google that.
I got you. Hold on. Battlestar Galactica Last Supper. What's going on here?
Okay.
What the fuck?
So this is marketing material. Battlestar Galactica was coming out. And here you have the Last Supper, and in the place of Jesus Christ is number 6.
Yeah.
Now, you have to ask, like, what's your interpretation of this like art that they've done here? Like, what, having seen the show and knowing like kind of what number 6 is, does this make any sense at all?
Not
like,
really.
In what ways is she like Jesus?
Not
in no ways.
Yeah.
In no ways is she like Jesus at all. She doesn't die for anyone. She's not helping. She's not forgiving sins. She's not, like nothing. Like, no one betrays her. Like, it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. It's just a bunch of gibberish. It's like, it's like when people say, like, why is Trinity called Trinity in the Matrix? No reason. She's just Trinity. There's no, like, but it sounds like there's some sort of religious symbolism there. Yeah, it sounds like it, but there's not. It's just, her name is just Trinity. There's no meaning to it beyond that.
So to the audience who have never seen the show and are a little confused, basically everything that has happened in the show was God's plan. The literal God, the Alpha and the Omega, the Almighty himself. That was all his plan.
And I will say that so, I mean, are you finished up? Because I'll tell you why the ending of Battlestar Galactica is atrocious. It's more atrocious than even the ending of Game of Thrones.
I'm finished. Yeah, the last thing I saw was the last episode last night before you came in.
Yeah. So in the last episode, you find out that all of the mysteries of the show, like who's been sending the visions, who saved Starbuck and sent her back, who has been the guiding voice of them all, and the answer is it was God. It was God in the end, and God gives them a planet at the end, and they restart civilization there. And so I will tell you why this is the worst fucking ending you could possibly have. Battlestar Galactica, for the most part, is a struggle. It's about what humans do when push comes to shove. When their back is against the wall, what do humans do and how did they survive? Okay, that's fundamentally the plot. Would you agree?
Yeah,
of Battlestar Galactica?
That's when it's at its best.
Absolutely. And so there are moments, there are ups and downs in Battlestar. A lot of ups and downs. There's times where what the people do, what humans do is inspiring. They surprise each other, and there's times where everybody bickers and it's horrible. And they're struggling and they're surviving. But slowly, the population of the Battlestar is dwindling. They are dying. And then 4th season happens, and things get worse and worse. Okay? They don't find the planet. They're depressed. We've learned that they just, everything is fucking falling apart. And you're like, how are they going to get out of this? And the answer is human beings can't get out of it. They need to be saved by fucking God. Like, there's no like inspirational thing about like the human spirit, human ingenuity, caring about each other. None of that happens in the end. Like nothing is like, oh, you know what saves humanity? Because in the end, we finally fucking figured it out, and we bound together, and we fucking saved civilization. Or like we made peace with the Cylons. We discovered forgiveness, and that even in the when faced with darkness, human beings, even faced with this horrible enemy, can forgive them, and we can all get along, and there can be peace. All of the different opportunities about when you think about like what's good about humans. What are the positive qualities of human beings? Things that like Star Trek specifically celebrates. Like we got none of that. So instead, Battlestar became a slow trudge, an exploration of human beings being flawed and hopeless, ending with us discovering that they're flawed and hopeless and literally need divine intervention for their survival.
Or divine guidance. That's kind of the point of the Six and Baltar hallucinations, like divine guidance to like make the right decision. Yeah.
Right. And the right decision apparently is to throw all your medical technology into the sun and go back to caveman lifestyle, which is what they do at the end.
That was stupid. I thought that was the most... They send all of their spaceships into the fucking sun. Bro.
Right. They're literally like, this is literally like the end of Battlestar Galactica is literally Christian Science. Like you're not allowed to use medicine.
Is Ron Moore that guy though? I don't know anything about him.
No.
Oh, then why?
And that's the fucking thing.
Then why?
He's just because they just weren't thinking, and they couldn't come up with a better fucking answer. Like they couldn't come up with a better ending.
Well, here's the thing about my theory about there being like good and evil, hyper advanced alien civilizations, yada yada, that were like seeded. I was right, but about the original series. That's actually a plot line in the original series, the Beings of Light. That's a whole... I looked this up last night after you left. My idea of what's going on was actually, the entire time, was actually from the original 70s series, not the new one, which makes me shocked because, like, there are elements from the original that made it in, like the Return of Starbuck and stuff like that. Like, that was... They redid that for the reimagined series in the 2000s. Yet they left that part out. Also, like there's so much.
At the end of the original Battlestar series, they find Earth, and it's Earth, and they have the Battlestar 1980 thing.
And like it being God is fucking stupid. So I looked this up again because I'm so curious. Like, what's the mentality behind this? So apparently, the hallucinations that Baltar kept seeing the entire time of the Caprica 6 model in the red dress. She's supposed to be like a messenger of God, an angel, if you will. Well, I binged the entirety of season 1. There are moments where she's pushing him to do some evil shit. Not to mention, they're outright having sex in his hallucinations. There are times when characters catch him humping the air when he's really humping her. That's why I kept thinking, like, okay, this is like supposed to be like the devil or the devil's champion trying to get Baltar to do some crazy stuff. But what you're...
No, you got to understand that the creator of the universe and it would be interested in having Baltar like hump air. Yeah.
So basically
it's part of his master plan.
Well, apparently his master plan is to like put all of these trials and tribulations in front of Baltar, have him suffer all these things and convince him to do all this crazy shit for him to make the right decision in the end.
But then he's just at the end he's given isn't he given a vision? There's a scene where it's been 20 years, but aren't they all like wandering around a Cylon ship at the end and like getting visions?
Something like that. And that's the other thing that doesn't make any sense. So if the Caprica 6 model is a messenger from God, other people are also receiving these messengers from God, right? So Starbuck at the very end, I guess, is revealed to be an angel. And a messenger, another messenger. Yeah. But she also has her own messenger. She has two. She has in season 4. She has.
Why would a messenger get a messenger, or is she only a messenger after she comes back?
Right. Well, even after she comes back, she gets two messengers. She gets Leoben as a messenger.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And then she gets her dad as a messenger, who teaches her how to.
Why would a messenger need a messenger?
Why would an angel need an angel? It's a Family Guy skit.
They didn't fucking know what was going on. And this is the thing is when I talk about like it in general being a failure to examine anything good about like the human condition. And it's a very depressing kind of concept that like each individual story is that too. Like none of the characters get to a point where they learned something and then turned a corner and were better. Like that didn't happen to anybody. Like they just kept existing and then get visions from God and then just live on a planet. Like that's all they fucking do at the end. Like no one learns to become a good leader.
Well,
no one.
The plan here, and here's the interesting thing: the only characters that had a plan was God, and God's plan is to have this happen all over again throughout the entirety of the series. This has happened before; it will happen again. What the fuck does that even mean? Turns out it's Mass Effect. In Mass Effect, the idea is that organics will make synthetics, and in turn, synthetics will wipe out organics. So to keep like the cycle of life, actual life, organic life continuing, organic life needs to be culled every 30,000 years for new evolution and new life to take its place. But then that needs to be culled because, just like always, they will make synthetics, robots, to make their lives easier, and those robots will rebel, and then, all that whole situation needs to be culled and allow... So basically, God wanted this to happen again in hopes that it'll be different. That's the last conversation that the hallucination Caprica and the hallucination Baltar have with each other about, like, hopefully humanity will make different choices this time. And then you get a sense of feeling like, oh, no, they won't, because here they are making robots again. And the ending montage to the series are, like, robots evolving. So...
But even that doesn't make any sense to me, because it's like, it's God's plan, but then creating beings that cause the entire thing to fall apart. Like if you're going with some sort of like Noah's Ark situation where like the world has become wicked and there needs to be a flood and everyone's getting on the ark and the Battlestar Galactica is just the trial of Noah, and then they arrive and then they form their society again and then become wicked again and then they get back into the ark in some sort of endless cycle, which is like what's the role of the Cylons? Like who are they? Like is creating the how was humanity actually wicked? Like when we met Caprican society at the very beginning, was there anything wicked about that society that needed to be destroyed?
I'm so glad you're bringing this up. I'm so glad you are.
And at the end, when we look at our society, is there anything wicked about our society? The best you can come up with is we're so wicked that we keep creating synthetics. But why is creating synthetics like wicked? Like what exactly
creating synthetics is
society
wicked.
Do? What exactly did society do that made it so that billions of them needed to die?
Because it's an affront to God for God's children to try to play God themselves. That's the only explanation I can think of. But here's the thing, though. What's ominous about the final moments of the show is when she calls...
I mean, don't they become enlightened? Like, they reject this. They reject creating Cylons, and the Cylons leave, and they go into isolation.
I mean...
So, like, if creating Cylons is evil, Caprican society became enlightened and sent the synthetics off. Banned them.
I don't know, because as we find out, like, obviously humanity at the very, very, very last episode is like 2000s Earth. And it looks like they're primed to make the same mistakes again with synthetics. But what's really ominous is that towards the very end, the last few moments of the episode of the whole series, Caprica 6, she calls God, and like the Baltar hallucination is like, no, it hates it when you call it that. Huh? That's so ominous. Like, what do you mean? It hates it when you call it that? Why? That's so random. You know what I'm talking about?
It's just. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't read into it. There's just no explanation.
That's why I thought, again, for the longest time, that, okay, there's something going on here that maybe like there's like it's not really God, it's like some kind of evil thing. But okay, I agree with you. Ending was not good, and it was very bad. I agree with you 110%. But to me, the journey was great. However, I think the most egregious thing, beyond God did it, because that's only the final episode. Because season 4, in my opinion, still has some banger episodes, despite the ending that God did it, despite the final 5 being lame. For me, the most egregious thing is what happened in season 3. The need to remove the mystery and looming threat of the Cylons and who and what they are by making them sexy robots floating in a nightclub in space. I really hated that, and I'll tell you why. I absolutely love the somber, difficult, and traumatic moments for characters to scrounge, to survive, to adapt to their surroundings, and almost grim, dark reality of being the last humans left in the universe. I love those moments. I love the coldness of it, the freakiness of it, like the harsh reality of being alone and having to fight every day to survive, being on the run, needing to find a new source of food, water, fuel, staving off like insurrection and rebellion in your own ranks while there's this crazy threat coming to kill us all for mysterious reasons. What's crazier and more scary to me is this threat that we can't understand, and even if they told us their motives, we wouldn't understand. I love that. And they took that away. They took that away. Yeah. That's a more unforgivable thing.
I mean, yes. I mean, you're saying that the mystery, revealing the mystery took away a lot, like giving us Michael Myers' backstory kind of explanation. I didn't like the Cylons as it went on, because when I was first introduced to the show, like, people told me the premise and they were like, okay, well, there's robotic Cylons who look metal, but then there's the skin jobs and they look human. And so much so that it's even their cells are the same. And then, so there's like the moral question of, well, how are they different from humans? But then they can resurrect so they don't have to deal with mortality. So that's really interesting. And then there's many 7s and there's many 8s and all sorts of, so there's just kind of this like endless supply. And they so all of the different aspects that made the Cylons interesting, which were infiltration, resurrection, multiple copies, all of that was taken away by season 3, because they kill they get rid of the resurrection ship, they destroy all of the copies until there's only one version of each of the numbers. And
actually, that happens in season 4. They destroy the hub very late into season 4. They destroy the hub.
Yeah, and then by chance, one version of each survives.
Actually, no, several versions, not a lot, but enough were on the base star that joins the fleet. And I was messaging you about
I want to say that there's a few Lucy Lawlesses, but I think there's not, but there's not that many copies.
Actually, one Lucy Lawless survives at the very end, and then she gets so depressed seeing Earth irradiated and destroyed, she actually stays behind, and that's the end of her story. So it's just a bunch of Sharons and a bunch of Caprica's 6 models. A bunch of 6s and 8s is what they call them. I was messaging, and I find it fucking hilarious how eventually those skin job Cylons are a part of like the fleet's daily life.
Like, thank goodness that the 2 hottest models are the ones that survive.
and they're the good guys, so we don't have to see the other dudes.
Yeah.
But no, I always find it funny because throughout the entirety of the show, the really hot woman, the blonde,
should have just been all Dean Canes, like all Dean Canes.
The really hot blonde with the nice Marilyn Monroe haircut, she is like throughout the show entirely. And then towards the very end, when they become allies, she's like, a bunch of her are just walking all over the place with the same hairstyle, doing like menial jobs, like being mechanics, being fighter pilots, all with like the makeup done. And I'm like, that's okay, guys, like, let's calm the fuck down. Like, that's a little ridiculous. But here's what I thought was crazy about the Cylons, and I wish they would have kept it this way. I felt the reason they made these Cylons that look like people were for 2 reasons. For spy/infiltration and for ambassador diplomacy purposes. Because the Cylons, the way I saw them, the Cylon race were actually the Centurions. They had evolved to the point where they don't talk. because they don't need to. They communicate with the hive mind. They can have a conversation in less than a tenth of a second. That's crazy. And so therefore they needed to make these like spy infiltration units and these skin jobs to be like ambassadors and so on and so forth to talk to people if they needed to. I liked it that way. I wish they would have kept it that way, but they didn't. They needed to. There was this need to just humanize our enemies, and I fucking hate that. I permit me to go on this tangent briefly because there is no need to overcomplicate shit. Just let Spider-Man catch the bank robber. The bank robber doesn't need to be his uncle from an alternate dimension who's really here to save the world from a race of evil Spider-Man trying to shoot a blue laser from the middle of New York City. Just keep it fucking simple. The boogeyman in your closet should just be a boogeyman. We don't need like an alternate like anime sad backstory to this boogeyman. No. Let's keep our monsters as monsters, but they had to fucking humanize them. And to me, that's way more egregious. To remove the threat of the Cylons, to try to give them some kind of I want to be human like Data-esque purpose, and that's more egregious to me than God did it.
Right.
At least to me.
Right. Like the thing is like, why would anyone aspire to be the types of humans that are in this show? We aspire to be people that fight amongst themselves and their population slowly dwindles until the point that they're hopeless and a higher power comes in and saves them. Like, why are you aspiring to that? Like, you know, there's...
Again, I hate this need to humanize our enemies. That's one of the reasons I love.
It's also it's a money saving thing as well. You know, it's like when the alien shows up and he's like, I can take any form, and so I've decided to take a human form.
Right.
And you're like, really? Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds inexpensive. You know, like it's always that.
Literally, like season 3 for most at least half of season 3, a little more than half, because there was like 12 episodes. It's them constantly like interacting with these humanoid models and them having these like complex things, and then Lucy Lawless, for whatever reason, being obsessed over the final 5, and like even when Baltar is the first person in the show that coins the term final 5. I don't know if you know that. I don't know if you remember that, but
no, I didn't know.
Baltar goes up to Lucy Lawless and he goes, back on New Caprica, I've only ever seen 7 models of Cylons. Who are the final 5? And it's like, oh, okay. I knew immediately when he said that. I'm like, okay. This was like a corporate committee decision of like, what should like the final 5 Cylons. Like, that's so dumb. Like, I can almost see in my head the actual meeting they did to have this be like the marketing gimmick going forward, when you didn't need that. You didn't need to show us a nightclub floating in space as the evil guy's base of operations. And all Baltar ever does for most of season 3 is have a threesome with Lucy Lawless and the hot blonde. That's all he does, bro. That's his literal storyline. You have nothing for him to do after season 2.
See, I feel like I've caused you to hate the series more.
That's the thing. I don't hate it. Even though like a good chunk of season 3 was not good, the ending sucked, I'm still happy I went on this journey, and I still really like the show. I just wish it didn't end that badly, and I wish they would have kept the Cylon and what they were a mystery. You don't need to answer the mystery. But them answering the mystery really fucks with like this being one of the most scariest bad guys in fantasy and sci-fi.
I mean, I think it's okay to answer the mystery if the mystery is something that's super interesting, and enriches the show.
But how many times does that happen?
It's very rare. Yeah. It's very rare. But you know, in the end, it's the solution was really simple and stupid. So
I agree. The solution was dumb, and again, I'm really happy I went on this journey. The difference between this and Game of Thrones is that Game of Thrones was a gradual decline. This, in my opinion, I thought most of season 4 was great. In fact, even that last episode was pretty good too. It's just the last 20 minutes sucks. And that's when all the dumb decisions started happening. I was watching this with a couple of people in my server, and I paused it at the moment they get to Earth. I'm like, okay, when does the bad stuff happen? And shout out to my boy Jimmy. He goes, you're gonna get to it. And then I press play. Okay, we're gonna get rid of the ships and send it straight into Earth. What? All right, Lee, I'm gonna take Roslyn over there to see some birds. Goodbye. What? He's leaving?
Yeah.
Okay. And then Lee's having his conversation with Starbuck, and he turns away and turns back, and she's gone. What? Huh? What? Wait, what? Like, it's the final final 20 to 15 minutes are fucking terrible. They're really terrible. But I will say, the show is so good, and there's so much good in the show, that I really don't think those final 15 minutes ruined the whole thing. Unlike with Game of Thrones, where it's a gradual decline, this was a very steep decline. And it's like, whoa!
I got this great party we can go to.
Oh my god!
Got this incredible party.
Oh my god, bro!
Yeah, I hope you're really excited about this party.
Why don't you binge the show again?
It's gonna be some great food.
Binge the show again.
No way! No way! No way! No! The fact that like I have spent like the past hour like remembering what an atrocious abomination it was like at the end. Like is enough.
No,
there's no way.
Preston, stop. It wasn't. I'm really happy I took the journey, because I will always like cherish those moments where I'm watching season 1. I'm like, oh shit, what's it?
See, it's worse. It's worse for the rest of us because we had to wait every week, and it built and it built and it built. We were so invested. You just fucking binge something and you're gonna forget about it.
Like I said, I'll be very real with you. I will always cherish those moments where I'm like, whoa, what's inside of a Cylon Ray? It's just a brain with like blood and gut. What? But they're robots. Whoa, the Pegasus? What is this? It's a Cylon trick. Like, oh my god, that speech that Lee gives in defense of Baltar. Fuck, I hate Baltar, but damn, he's actually convincing me. And like, oh, fucking Starbuck is dead? No! Oh, she's back! Like, there's so many moments of highs and lows. I just can't get rid of those. I can't let, like, these stupid bad decisions ruin those experiences for me, and I won't. I can't.
Well, we will agree to disagree. And,
eventually,
I think we've gone through. You've depressed me thinking about this show.
Eventually, you're gonna have to like binge this again, because your son is gonna like grow up and he's gonna
Never.
Oh, you're not gonna introduce Battlestar to your son when he's older?
No. Why would I waste my time? Why would I when there's good shows out there? No.
No, fair enough. I hope you don't mind if we wrap it up here. Guys, thank you so much for joining, as always. We'll see you all next time. Have a good one.